something.
Thank you, Judge.
Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to each of you on your nominations. My questions today, Judge Alba, I'm going to come to you. I want to talk with you a little bit about the Virgin Mendoza case. And you released an illegal immigrant from GPS location monitoring after he was convicted for helping his brother. The brother had murdered a police officer. And Mendoza helped his brother evade law enforcement. So to justify your decision, you relied on the words of this defendant that he said he would never flee and he would never leave his family because he wanted to avoid a 21-month sentence. But he had helped his brother to evade law enforcement. And the fact that he repeatedly lied during this investigation should have been something that was going to make him ineligible for being released from location monitoring. So we are seeing a terrible rise in violent crime in this country, especially in larger cities. And I just cannot imagine how you could have justified releasing this person from location monitoring after he had helped a cop killer evade arrest. Can you explain that to me?
Senator, I'm not 100% sure if I remember this case. As I mentioned earlier, I have 1,156 on my docket, but if I do remember correctly, is this the one where ICE also had location monitoring on him?
I know that he had location monitoring on him and that you allowed it to be removed, and you wrote a lengthy order on this, granting that removal. You never mentioned the fact that the defendant's brother had murdered a police officer, which is ultimately why the defendant was convicted in the first place. So it appears that that was not a fact that was important to you in your process. And I think we just have to look at what is happening with crime in our cities, and your decision that was here to remove that and to allow this guy to go forward. I mean, we have such a problem with people that are trying to evade law enforcement. Let me move on. I know that Senator Lee asked you about the Hernandez Fields case, and I had looked at this case. I do not see how you could justify your decision there. But the fact that this is someone who had demonstrated for many years his sexual interest in minors by obtaining and viewing images of children being sexually abused. This was a known fact to you. So did all of this not give you any pause as to what was happening? When you looked at these sentencing guidelines and when you looked at the filing on this person, did his interest in minors not give you any pause? Because human trafficking, sex trafficking, what is happening to women and children that are coming across that border, what we are seeing happen to these individuals, how could you possibly support release?
Senator, as I said, I have to make an individualized assessment based on everything that is presented to me. It wasn't supporting release. I did give him 66 months plus a lengthy sentence following supervised release following his
Yeah.
66 months in custody. I had been a juvenile court judge prior to coming to the federal bench, so I fundamentally understand how this impacts youth and how this impacts the public.
Your approach on the sentencing guidelines is what has concerned me as I reviewed those two cases, one dealing with law enforcement, one dealing with children. I've got one other question for you. You gave an interview with Super Lawyers magazine some years ago, and you described yourself as a lefty liberal from Berkeley. And my concern would be how people can look at you and say, we trust that this is someone who's going to be fair and impartial, if that is your description of yourself, your judicial philosophy. So do you still consider yourself to be a lefty liberal from Berkeley?
Senator, respectfully, that was a quote in jest, because that's what my former law firm partners referred to me as, because I attended Berkeley as both an undergraduate and a law student. But as to the core part of your question, it has more to do with the fact that the type of judge that I will be is a type of judge that I have been. I have been fair. I do individualized assessments. I do look at every case as I'm required to look at it on an individualized basis, and I would continue to do that. I do apply the law to the facts, and I apply and adhere to all binding precedent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.